The hardest part about my job is convincing people that hunger is actually real. If you haven't experienced it or if you haven't been there, then it's really hard to believe that we're in the richest country in the world and that we have people that have to choose between paying rent and buying food, or taking a loved one to the hospital or buying food. The face of hunger has certainly changed over the years. There's a perception that people have when we talk about hunger, and the first question they ask is like, yeah, well, you guys serve a lot of the homeless population. That makes up about 6% of the individuals that we serve. The majority of the families that we serve, they look like you and they look like me.
According to the USDA, more than 38 million Americans, including 12 million children, are food insecure. With crop shortages, supply chain issues, and rising food costs, people are going hungry. The good news is everyday Americans are hard at work building food security, building resilience, building hope.
Hi, I'm Ron. I am a Gullah Geechee kid from Charleston, South Carolina. So I'm born and bred in the country. So out here on the farm, this is just beautiful. And I am the president and CEO of the Interfaith Food Shuttle. The mission is to feed our neighbors, teach self-sufficiency, grow healthy foods, and cultivate innovative relationships and solutions to ending hunger.
Interfaith Food Shuttle doesn't just hand out food. They get down to the root causes of hunger, working with communities to understand just what the unique needs are. Because every individual has a story.
I lost my mother at a very early age. She died at 36 in a car accident. And my father left with 4 kids. Distraught, it became very difficult for him and very challenging. And so he actually lost his job. My grandmother, she knew of a place called the Food Trust. And we would pick up food for not just our family, but several other families in the neighborhood. So food was always present. It wasn't anything that I missed. You know, it didn't matter to me that it came from the food bank because it was there. And so looking back, I realized I was able to be a child. So I was hoping, I was dreaming, I was playing. I grew up and left home at 17 on a waiver my dad signed to go into the Air Force. Coming back home after that time, I found out about the local food bank and they were looking for someone. And I started in the warehouse pulling orders. And one day I had an opportunity to go along with the director on a presentation. He began to tell a story about a single parent who was raising children and why it was so important for the food bank to have food. And it dawned on me, he's telling my story. And after some more conversations and riding back with him, this was the same gentleman that ran the food bank 13 years earlier when me and my grandmother used to go there. And that's the same gentleman that gave me my very first opportunity in the world of food banking. And so for the past 23 years, I've been working trying to pay him back.
My name is Melissa Stewart. I'm the director of Patriot Gardens. It's a program within the National Guard. We work directly with our military active as well as retired and their families and try to see how agriculture can maybe engage them to actually see some of the glimpses of what civilian life may entail. So we're kind of phasing them into what their place could be here back home.
When we deploy, of course, we go overseas and do things that most people don't want to have to go do. And some folks get to see things that we don't ever want to see, and you can't unsee it. Being able to come back and have a way to adapt through gardening and raising livestock and those kind of things, it helps you to transition back and allow you to get rid of those thoughts that you may have from the deployments.
How do you take somebody, give them a whole new sense of responsibility? That once again is what our soldiers and our airmen and military, they thrive on. To put them into a role to where what they're doing on a regular basis is helping to not only sustain our state, but develop a local foods economy. They have a purpose, and everybody's purpose-driven.
I'm Brigadier General Bill Crane. I'm the Adjutant General for West Virginia. And as the Adjutant General, I'm the commander of both the Army and the Air National Guard in West Virginia. As soldiers and airmen in the Guard, we are all about protecting our country. We're about supporting and defending the Constitution of the United States. And one of the things that we saw in West Virginia, particularly during this pandemic, just how many people are right on the edge of food insecurity. We had a tremendous uptick and the number of people that needed food assistance. To see our soldiers and airmen jump into that mission and help so many families. And in some cases, there are folks that we have in the service that may need that assistance as well.
Well, you are in Charleston, West Virginia, on the west side. My name's Dave. I'm the hillside gardener, as I like to call myself, because I pretty much transformed my backyard hillside into my little garden paradise from scratch, all by hand. My grandpa was in the military. Our family is all very pro-military, so I joined up originally for a GI Bill just to go to college. Really poor growing up. I've been in the Guard since 2007, and I was active duty from 2000 to 2007. I am an aircraft maintenance supervisor on C-130H cargo aircraft for the National Guard, full-time. Everything about airlines and airplanes is to the minute. You don't get to fail. So if you're trying something in your garden and you're having some struggles with it, you're gonna figure out another way to find yourself a way to succeed. So that's kind of the attitude of, this plane is broke and we're not going home until it's fixed, so let's figure it out.
Sergeant Wenger figured it out. He joined the Patriot Gardens Carrot Cooperative and put his gardening skills to the test, transforming his backyard into a thriving business. Now, he's selling his produce to local markets and restaurants, and he's turning 2 vacant lots into community gardens.
We have people that are very self-reliant and resilient, and we don't sit around and wait for everybody to tell us how to do things. We kind of try to figure it out and do it on our own.
Just from a military preparedness aspect, our food source is important. Where does our food come from? Can we feed our own people within the state? We consume $8 billion worth of food annually, and we only produce a fraction of that. What should we be concerned with? And that's our natural resources.
If you can grow your food close to where it's going to be consumed, it certainly helps us to get the food products where they need to be. When I grew up, we always grew a garden ourselves, and that allowed us to have food on the table and not have to go to the grocery store and buy it.
We kind of look at it as food security as well as food safety. We're trying to illustrate back to our veteran and military that they can then be those producers.
And so the research that's being done here, as well as other opportunities for ag production in the state, is going to help build that food chain.
In a country as large as the United States, building a food chain is complicated. In some states, more than others.
When you grew up here, you wouldn't have seen fresh grown produce necessarily.
We get shipped the worst stuff.
Essentially 95% of the food in Alaska is imported.
It's never really picked at the peak of ripeness.
So this is our store.
What
Welcome.
a nice.
Panhandle Produce.
Love it.
Local food for local people. We thought that maybe a market, facilitated towards local produce to make it a consistent year-round available thing for people was the way to
make it a viable option for somebody to make a living growing produce here.
While Alaska Natives have lived off the land for thousands of years, agriculture doesn't come easy there. Cold winters aside, the ground can be tough to work with. In the time of the glaciers, the land was stripped of its topsoil, and only a thin layer of silt, sand, and rock remains.
So really, farming and gardening here is about creating your own soil and maintaining the tilth.
Just learning how plants grow. I learned through trial and error. There's no mistakes, there's no failures. It's just the next step forward.
Based on what we're doing and what our goals are for the end game, which is to be self-sufficient, thinking about how food security not only matters, but is actually vital to building resilient communities, and how Southeast specifically, even with the climate as harsh as it might be or unpredictable as it might be, if we had a shipment that's late within 3 days' time, the shelves will be barren. When COVID hit, that was kind of an extreme case example. Well, it's actually a matter of our survival and our sustainability here as a community.
Down in Houston, Texas, they're up against a similar challenge. And though they couldn't be further from Juneau, Alaska, they've arrived at a similar solution.
Hyperlocal, to be doing everything completely local, building a community that will sustain itself.
I would say about 90% of the demand for produce is in the cities, but 99.9% of the supply is on average 1,600 miles away.
Because of transportation increase and all that, farms are going to start being developed within neighborhoods or within small community centers.
Trying to use hydroponics to use a small footprint, grow on top of the soil on tables or even in vertical towers. And that way you need a lot less land in order to produce food.
Although we're in Houston, it's considered a food desert city. Not a lot of things can grow in Texas based on water, nutrients, and also the soil. It's not fertile enough. And the demand is so high that we have to outsource it through Latin America, Mexico. About 66% of the food that comes through the borders to the US goes to waste.
What?
Yeah, it's incredible.
That is so much.
It's a lot.
66% of the product coming across the border ends up getting thrown away or spoiling because
It's a living organism. We want to make sure that the community has year-round access to food. And not only just food, it's high nutrition.
The food served in our schools is quite poor in terms of nutrition. They often have high trans fatty acids and lack in vitamins and minerals, and that leads to decreased cognitive ability amongst other health complications. With hydroponics, we can actually change the lives of so many students just one meal at a time. My name is Rahul Vijay, and I'm the CEO and founder of From to Tray. Our mission is to accelerate hydroponic adoption in the greater Houston area in schools, and then we plan to expand nationwide.
We started investigating different types of hydroponics like in 2015. We actually built the greenhouse right after Hurricane Harvey.
Fighting the weather here in Texas is like the hardest. I think once we figure it out here, we can figure it anywhere in the world. Now that we're doing a controlled environment within the farm, it's given us an opportunity to learn a lot of what the future is going to look like.
We're not going to be able to grow everything, but boy, if we can nurture 1,000 farmers and now that every city can support itself, that's our big dream.
I had a dream of being an Air Force pilot since I was 7 years old. I got into the Air Force and found out I was colorblind and told I would never fly. But I had an opportunity to still serve my country. I was with the chaplaincy, so I got a chance to talk to so many soldiers and then hear their reasons, their purposes, their rationales. And I realized that each individual had a story as to why they were serving their country. That's where their security is coming from. That's where their hope is coming from. And I apply that same model to our team. Each one of them have a story. That's their driving force. That's what makes them give everything that they have to this work and to this mission.
We're resilient. We're steadfast. We ain't leaving. We're going to fix it.
Anything we can do to help or alleviate any kind of suffering that folks may have, it's just, as you know, it's Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
We understand that there's a stigma. We understand that there's already a level of uncomfortability to walking into a pantry and say, hey, I need help. At any point in time, any one of us can be in any position on that systems framework. We can be the neighbor that needs the assistance. We can be the neighbor that supports the assistance. We can be the neighbor that works in government and help with the policies that remove these systemic barriers many of these families face, especially that we're seeing in communities of people of color. And with families struggling, trying to remove these barriers, they're often making trade-offs. These are individuals that are getting up every morning, going to work, and they're looking and praying for a miracle and hoping that they'll have something to bring home to their children that afternoon. Mothers who are making the decision to whereas they're not eating tonight just so that their kids can eat. That's the reality of what we face.
We've got to find them an opportunity, something to give them some hope. If you can't get out of bed every day knowing you have something that you need to get out of bed for, it really can make you get into a pretty depressed place. We've got to figure out what it is that we can get everybody raised back up.
How do we look at what we have and really put it to good use? So that's our land resources, that's our knowledge bases, that's our labor, that's our brain trust. All of those things, align them on the side of agriculture. Let's do what we can do in order to provide that economic prosperity that we desperately need. But even in that, provide hope, dreams, initiatives. How do we do better?